Welcome to the Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Keren Eldad. Settle in. We're about to make you feel really good. Are you ready to learn about leadership? I hope you are. Welcome back to the Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Keren Eldad, and today we have an incredible guest for you, a coaching master, Lyndsay Dowd. Lyndsay is a speaker, the author of Top Down Culture, and the host of the top-ranked podcast, Heartbeat for Hire, on which I was recently lucky enough to be a guest. She's on a mission to transform leadership from the inside out, to foster cultures of authenticity in and around yourself. And I want to talk a lot about that, a lot about authenticity and integrity and how that factors into this. Welcome to the show, Lyndsay.
Thank you.
We're so happy to have you.
I'm so happy to be here. I've been so looking forward to this.
I have too. I've been looking forward to this as much as I was looking forward to Taylor Swift's new album.
Me too. It's a bop. I love it.
We've had a lot of fun talking about that.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, let's start at the beginning. You've had a really unusual and interesting career, but one that actually started in the most traditional of ways, 23 years at IBM, rising through the ranks and then breaking free. Can you talk about how you end up in this background and then what you've done with this background?
Yeah, I don't know that I planned. If I look back on when I was in probably middle school and high school, I don't think I was really planning on being in business and being at IBM, but I found myself there after college and came in through Lotus, which was definitely not IBM. We were dreadlocks and flip-flops and beer carts on Friday, and my father was 41 years with IBM, and our family put in 105 years, so it was a long, long legacy. And I told him we were going to take him casual, and he didn't believe me. And I'm like, oh, it's coming. It's coming. Anyway, so those 23 years were filled with tons of recognition, really great opportunities. I got to run a lot of first-of-a-kind businesses for IBM, and I managed big sales teams. And it was a great career. But at the end of 23 years, things had changed, and my mentors had left. And I was kind of in this spot where I was like, I'm not feeling fulfilled anymore. I don't feel like I'm growing. And so another company wooed me over and said, would you come lead a sales team for us? And so I packed up my big blue legacy and my beautiful decorated career, and off I went. And in 6 short months, they fired me. And I was devastated. I'm not the girl who gets fired. I'm the girl you call when you want to build a team, when you want to do something different, when you want to break glass, when you want to try something new. So this was really personal, and it hurt. And for a month, I couldn't talk about it. And then I asked myself 3 questions. What am I really good at? What do I love to do? And how can I help people the most? And that part was really important to me. And I knew how to raise modern leaders. I knew how to turn people and get their best qualities out of them. And I knew how to build irresistible culture. I had done it with my teams. I knew what it felt like, and I knew what wrong looked like. And so I bet on myself. And in a family that does not value entrepreneurship, that was kind of hard. My parents were like, couldn't it just be a side hustle? Yeah. Do you really think you want to do this? And I was like, I'm doing this for me, and I've socked away some money, and I'm going to try. And so I started coaching individual leaders in C-suites. I started keynote speaking. I wrote my first book, Top Down Culture, second book, Voices of Women, and started my podcast, which you were a guest on. And that has been a total labor of love. And I just started my first live show.
Unbelievable.
So all these things have happened.
The
Leadership Lounge.
Yeah.
Yes, with Linz. All these things have happened in the last 3 years. So it's been kind of a wild and crazy ride. It's very squiggly. It's not direct. I didn't have a map. I didn't have a playbook. I just kind of really tried to center and listen to my heart and do things that felt really good and surround myself with people that made me better.
You said so many things that are worth underlining here. The first is you very likely learned an enormous amount about the differences between cultures in all the IBM transitions. So Lotus gets acquired, for example. That's a huge matzo ball for change management. And that means that you did learn on the job a lot of things in the flesh. And you know, one of the things I say to particularly people who want to become executive coaches, you better have some serious executive experience. Yeah. And nothing gives you more executive experience, which I know, of course, firsthand myself, than going through change management in an organization, understanding what it feels like to be in a place place that's changing, in a management structure that's changing, in a culture that is adapting to something completely new. The second thing you said was, in the very big transition, you start to listen to your heart and you ask of the three questions, the two most fundamental questions about purpose.
Yes.
What do I want to do? What do I love to do?
Right.
And number two, how can I help people, hopefully with it? That's it. And then you just moved, you acted on it.
Yeah.
And here, there's a third lesson, and that is that you went against the grain of the culture, in your particular case, your parents.
Yeah.
In many cases, people are still, and this baffles me in 2026, people who will still say things like, can it be a side hustle? There is no more 9-to-5 job. This is the era of the pivot. This is the
100%.
era of the do-it-yourself. This is the era of, I have advocated for 10 years now to start your own thing, because it's truly the new American dream. And I think possibly the only way for people to truly acquire independence and independent financial freedom.
Yeah. I think for my parents, my dad spending all those years at IBM, my mother was a school teacher, and they both came from financial insecurity. So they were projecting their insecurities onto me. And I think my mother thought I would be tin cupping and homeless with my twins, like on the street corner, which was never going to happen. But that was a real fear for them. And, I don't think they fully still understand what I'm doing. I don't really care, but I know what I'm doing, and I know what feels good. And to your point about living on the fly in the face of change, I was in software group at IBM, and we were acquiring companies. I think there was one year there was more than 18 companies that were acquired, and that is disruptive. It is challenging. People are fearful. They are uncertain, and they get moved around. And a lot of people don't know what they're doing. They don't know what jobs they have. So it was really important as a leader to ground them and to give them a direction and make connection where they didn't have it. And that was a big, big leadership lesson that I learned, which I loved.
Every time I talk to somebody, I always think of the audience as one specific person. And today is one specific client of mine who I just love and adore so much. The most special soul, just like you, a corporate superstar who really is hitting that burnout stage and interested in the next, but a little fuzzy around purpose. And I believe the fuzziness is actually coming from the fear of starting. And so the very big lessons for you, listener, if this is resonating with you, is number one, look back at your experience and understand how much value you brought in that organization itself, and how much you already know and understand intuitively what needs to be given. Number two, do it. Just do it. Just start the podcast, start the lives, start the one-on-one counseling. Just start any offer and start doing anything on the side that gives you inspiration, that feels really good. You love the podcast. It's fun.
I love it.
It's a really fun thing to do. Just start and see where it goes. And number three, don't allow external noise to flood you. Just like you said, I still don't care. Listen, I've been 10 years in this game. I'm making multiple 7 figures, and my parents are just beginning to think,
she's figured it out.
Maybe she's doing something relatively cool. To be honest, they're still, I think, more interested in Ryan's career than how is Ryan. But that's just how they see the world. That's how they're wired.
It's what they were brought up with.
They're immigrants.
Yeah.
I understand. I'm also an immigrant. I just happen to have a different mentality.
That's right.
So flood out the noise and be like Lyndsay and just move.
Well, and to your point with your client who's a little fuzzy, the thing that I love to remind people is think back to when you absolutely were in love with what you were doing. Yeah. Remember what that was. Whatever that was, find a way back to that. There was elements there that really made your heart happy. So what were those moments? And that can help be your true north and help shape that. And for me, when I thought back to the things that I love the most, when I was inspired by great leaders, I was unstoppable. And let me tell you, I had my fair share of horrible leaders. And for the first 15 years of my career, it was the pale, male, and stale who only believed that leadership was through sports analogies. So, hey, guys, if you saw what happened on the 30-yard line last night, I didn't, I don't care, and I'm not inspired. But I had to play the game.
Yeah.
And I was the only woman on many male teams. And when I finally found out that leadership didn't have to be that way, my world opened up. It was so exciting. And I was like, oh, no, this is how you do
Totally.
it. Yeah.
I have a lot of male clients. 50% of our clientele is male. And I've learned that they love the 90s Chicago Bulls and Seinfeld.
Yeah.
And luckily, those are the only two things that I can use.
I love both of those
as
things.
references. Exactly. Because the 90s Chicago Bulls weren't really a sports team. They're a 90s
That was an
iconography.
empire.
And Phil Jackson, the coach of that team. Oh, the sexiest of all time, right, Constantine? But Seinfeld too. And it's useful, but it's also useful to understand. And that's another thing I actually wanted to point out, which was you also learn by what you don't want. So look not only for the moments that made you truly, truly happy, just remember back the management that you thought sucked. Remember what it was like to be miserable. Remember what it's like to be not appreciated and to not feel seen and heard, and use that in service too.
I mean, Keren, that's how I teach. That's how I keynote. So when I keynote, I take people on a roller coaster ride, and I start off with an absolutely tragic story. True stories. These are all my stories of a really wretched leadership moment. And then you can hear the audible gasp, which is always like, I know I'm getting it. And then you take them down, and then we go back up and we do something good. And they get inspired. And when you give people stories, which I love stories, this is how I teach. People remember stories. You can remember all of those moments. When I poll a room and say, who here has had a bad leader? 100% of the room raises their hand.
Yeah.
And when I say the same, who here has had a great leader? It's a lot less. And that's what I want to change.
That is a true mission.
Yeah.
Before we talk about your mission, we brought up keynotes and we brought up podcasting. And those are two very sexy elements, which I know because everybody's like, how'd you become a speaker? And how did you start a podcast?
Yeah.
And I understand. It's a very lucrative business too, by the way. Let's talk a little bit about that. How do these come about? And what can you share tactically, practically for the listener who really wants to become a professional speaker and who really wants to perhaps start a podcast that actually gets beyond, I don't know, podcasts. I don't know what the stats are, but I just read them and they're terrible, right?
The stats are bad. Very, very few make it to 20 episodes. Very few.
And 6,000 podcasts launch per week. I remember that.
Yeah, we're at, I think there's 3.7 or 3.8 million podcasts worldwide right now. So there's a lot of podcasts out there.
But again, 80% of them will just
don't
not
make it past 20 episodes. And if you're going to think about a podcast, what I always tell people is it's a 5-year commitment.
Yes.
So if you're going to start, give yourself runway and expect that it's going to change. But you want to be really clear on why you're doing it and who you're talking to.
Yes.
Because I think people are a little sensationalized about like, I'm going to have this viral clip and everyone's going to watch it and I'm going to be famous. But why? What's the point?
Yeah, exactly.
Like if you're not in service to something, it's just a show and maybe it's entertaining. My goal is to be entertaining and really, really inspiring.
Yeah.
And my guests are phenomenal. So for me, it's not that hard. From a keynote perspective, that is a really interesting place for people to play. It's not easy.
No.
It takes a lot of work.
Yes.
And there's a lot of, just like with podcasting, there's a lot of nonsense out there. There's a lot of bureaus that say they're going to help you and they don't do anything.
Of course not. If you're under 30 grand to talk, they don't care about you at all.
Yeah, well, that's not entirely true. There are some that do. And
As someone who's been through 2 bureaus, we're not getting the same attention.
no, definitely not the same. But there are some
Which I understand, by the way.
Yeah, there are some who recognize potential and they see that you're starting out. Now, most people, here's a hot tip. If you are thinking about speaking, you need material. You need people seeing you in action and you need practice.
That's right.
You do not want to get on stage if you've never done this before and get up there and you think you've got it all on lock. I promise you it needs work.
Especially if you've accepted money for it. You're saying such important things. I just want to stop for a second and underline a few important things.
Yeah.
Podcasting and speaking are both very serious businesses, and do not get into them if you're not in serious business. Number 2, really take the time to plan and understand what you're going to talk about and who you're speaking for. The what's in it for them is pretty much everything.
Yeah.
I took an enormous amount of time to plan out this entire show from its very inception, which was now 5 years ago. And though that the show has evolved over 5 years, and really, thanks to you guys, taken off enormously in the last year, this is a lot of planning and a lot of planning in the works. And nothing is more daunting to me than someone who believes that they're phenomenal speakers out the gate and then just wings it.
Yeah.
This, when you're in the presence of professional speakers who do this for a living, is not going to fly.
No.
And certainly not when you're accepting money for it. So it's really wise and incredible feedback you're giving them, Lyndsay.
So what I love to tell people who think they want to get into this, first, you really want to understand why. Why do you think that your voice needs to be heard? What is the message that people are going to walk away from? Because listen, we've all been in an audience where someone spoke and you sat there and you're like, well, that was 60 minutes I can't get back. Like, you want people to walk out of there saying, that was great. I feel inspired. And makes it past the elevator when they're leaving.
That's right.
Because, there's nothing worse than having a great keynote and they're like, oh, that was fun. Okay, where are drinks tonight? And they don't remember any of it. But if you're starting out, a great way to start is go to your local chambers of commerce, go to your local Rotary clubs. They're always looking for speakers. They won't pay you, but go and practice and take someone with you to take pictures and take video. And when you get that content of you in action, this is stuff you'll be able to use to market yourself.
Yes.
Now, a lot of people stress out about a speaker reel and they're like, I have to have a speaker reel if I'm going to get booked. It's not true. I've been booked without a speaker reel. I've done a ton of press. So there's a lot of footage of me, over 100 podcasts, plus my own show. I got plenty of footage. I get booked on referral.
Yeah.
So my network reaches out to me. They say, if you want to be inspired, if you guys are struggling, if you're a women's group that wants to talk about reinvention, she's your girl.
Exactly.
I have a few different topics. I like to give my clients a little menu of, these are things I can talk about. We can talk about personal branding. We can talk about reinvention. We can certainly talk about leadership. We can talk about culture. All these topics are up for grabs. You have to tell me what's going to resonate most with your audience, and I'll tailor my keynote to you. So to me, if you are super rigid and you talk about one thing, it's going to be harder to get you booked. So you want to be a little bit elastic with the topics, and you can really tailor it to your clients.
I completely agree. But one thing that you cannot be so elastic with is your values and your why.
No.
And so let's talk a little bit about that. You write, there was one line that I really loved in your book, Top Down Culture. The most powerful question a leader can ask is, how can I be the best leader for you?
Yes.
And I think that that's one of those things that really guides pretty much everything that you do. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of finding your values and the why of what you do, fueling you all these years?
I mean, that question is probably one of my most important questions that I teach leaders to ask. And it's a humbling question because you're admitting you don't know everything. And that's hard for people. So when you ask that question and you say, Keren, how can I be the best leader for you? You might not know immediately as someone that works for me, but you might have a little think and you might say, what would really be helpful to me? I could use more work understanding this part of our business. I need more help with marketing. I don't do very well with marketing. Is there someone that I could work with who could mentor me? Yeah, I would love to pair you up with someone. No problem. When you understand what your people need, you can be in service to them. And newsflash, if you are a leader, you are responsible to your people. It is not power. You don't go into leadership because you're climbing a ladder. And the people that get promoted because they are top performers, they're generally not the people that care about the people. You have to care about other people's success to be a great leader. And, when I looked across the landscape of people that I could promote, I had this one woman, Emma. Oh my God, she was amazing. She said to me, she was new to me. She was very suspect when we first started working together. She's like, new sheriff in town. Let's see if I like her. And so we were on Zoom and it was, we're all remote because my team was all over the place and she was off camera. And then slowly her camera started to come on. And then I saw her putting on a little makeup and I saw her leaning forward and I saw her more engaged. And she called me one day and she said, Lyndsay, I really love what you're doing. And I want to know, can I mentor a couple of people on the team? Yeah. Of course you can. You're a phenomenal seller. I would love that. I'm going to mentor them and I'm going to report back. And so this went on for a few weeks. And I was like, Emma, has anyone ever asked you if you wanted to be a manager? She said, Lyndsay, I would love to be a manager, but no one has ever asked me. And I said, well, the first opportunity that I have, I'm going to make you a manager.
Amazing.
And she is a phenomenal manager to this day. But what we did was very human. And the way that we worked together was pulling the best out of everyone.
That's
and
right.
We had one woman on the team who came over from an acquisition. She was absolutely lost, didn't know what she was doing. And I said, I don't think she understands the job. Is that what you're getting? She goes, yeah. I said, let's talk to her. And she said, I don't know what I'm doing here. I came over from marketing. I've never sold before. I'm completely lost. And I said, okay, well, we're here to help. And these are the things that you can tell your clients. These are the things you can tell your partners. Yeah. And if something goes wrong, we're here to help. She goes, really? I can say all of that? I can do all of that? Yeah. Let us know how it goes. Do you know in 6 months, she became my top seller.
Of course. And that's because of the power of being able to see people.
Yeah.
And the power of asking questions and having those human interactions. And also, like you said, caring about people's success. You cannot really lead without that, because otherwise the little lambs who are not getting it, they fall to the side, and they really don't need to. You were reminding me in that story of a great movie from 1989 called Stand and Deliver, about Jaime Escalante, the one math teacher who became legendary. It's a true story, who went into the inner cities of, I tell this story all the time in my keynotes, went into the inner city of LA to a school in which everybody thought that those students were lost cause and were never going to be able to study or learn math, let alone AP calculus, and one after the other nailing AP calculus. And that was such a tremendous example of what leadership should be. Yeah. If you assume that they're all boobs and morons, and unless they understand and our on team gets it, clearly they're the problem, that you are actually the problem, and your job is to inspire and to lead them to their greatest potential, you're not going to be on team gets it for quite some time. Actually, that brings me to something that you and I talked a lot about in our podcast together on your podcast, Heartbeat for Hire. And we talked a lot about integrity and excellence and how we see those as other values that are truly essential to leadership. I think that these are sacred, actually. Can you talk a little bit about them from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easiest way for me to paint a picture about this is about trust. And trust can be fractured in a heartbeat. And I have so many stories of shattered trust. And when you are a leader, trust is very fragile. Very. If you are in a team meeting and you yell at someone and you're shooting from the hip and you're not thinking about what you're saying, in that moment, that reverberates, and that whole team, you might fracture the team, the trust for the whole team. So you really have to be thoughtful about the things that you say. And if you screw up, you own it. And you say, hey guys, that I was not my best self. I didn't represent myself the best way. We're all human. I hope you can forgive me. I'm working on it, but I should never have said that. And what I should have said was this. And when you do that, first of all, you're making yourself relatable. And so many people put leaders on a pedestal until something terrible happens, and then they push back from the table and they're never again, not going to trust them ever again. And people really have to understand, when you assume a leadership role, you have to handle that with the utmost care. And this is where integrity comes in. You know, if you know something is wrong, and listen, in corporate America, you are asked to do all kinds of things that don't feel right. How you handle those moments really matters, and your team is watching. So you have a job, you owe it to them to take very, very special care of all of them. And I had to lay people off, which was something I
very hard
swore I would never get good at, and I never did. I never slept the night before. And when I had to do it, they give you a script and you have to read this script. It's very important. You adhere to the script. And I would tell them, I'd say, so I have to read from a script because I didn't want them to think it was my words, because that's not how I led. And out of 5 people in one day, 4 of those people said, Lyndsay, I'm so sorry you have to do this. they're apologizing to me. I'm taking away their job and they feel badly for me. And what that told me was I was leading with heart. I took care of my people. And that was really, really important to me. And we're still friends to this day. And we still try and help each other and support each other. But those great leadership moments, you never forget those leaders. And we still send holiday cards to each other. And it's that stuff's really, really powerful and important.
I love that you're bringing this up because, again, I talk so much about, like, there's a huge difference between understanding this in theory because you read a couple of Patrick Lencioni books and actually having lived through it.
Yeah.
If you've ever lived through, I have had to fire people using a script myself.
Yes.
I've had to go through it and rehearse and really plan and understand what you can't do, what you can do, et cetera, et cetera. Unless you understand what it's like to be in that position, to coach people in that position becomes a lot harder.
Yeah.
And, well, I'd personally say impossible. Now we're also living in an era of tremendous disruption and tremendous newness. There's AI.
Yes.
There are geopolitical movements that are making things very interesting. How has, and you and I also share a perspective where we're completely open about our values and our political stances as well.
Yep.
How has that factored into your teaching?
So my teaching doesn't get political. However, I am so adamant about leading with heart and so absolutely focused that on making people feel great, lifting others up. That is a human value. And if people liken that to one side or the other, that's their problem. To me, showing up as humans, lifting others up, that's just table stakes. That's just good leadership. That's just normal. And I'm never one to shy away from giving people their flowers. I think it is so important to shout people out and say, Keren, this podcast is so amazing. I'm so proud of you. This is just the best. I'm going to share it. And when you're constantly giving and you're constantly doing that, that becomes your brand and that looks good on you.
That always comes back to you. You just don't need to expect it to come back to you. I always tell people, give with both hands.
But it looks good on you.
Yes.
Like you'll never look bad lifting others up. And there's such an insecure way of leadership that people are like, if I give Keren all the credit, then they're not going to think I can do this. And that's just foolish. These people report to you. So make them look good. It makes you look good.
It really does. And again, it comes back to you, not reciprocally. Most people think that if I give, it will come back directly from. It will not. It will reverberate throughout the universe, and the universe will magnify it back
100%.
to you. Speaking of things that give a tremendous return, something that's come up several times on this podcast, probably also because I've asked, is marriage and the importance of marriage in our own ability to do this, to thrive in a career, coaching, speaking, consulting that is hard. How has your marriage anchored you?
Well, my husband and I met at IBM and we met at Lotus, and both of us left the corporate world. And he was actually pretty funny. He was interviewing for all of these tech jobs and sales jobs, and he wasn't making much headway. And my little 5'0" mother said to him, Mikey, I don't think you should do this anymore. You're really talented. I think you should become a fine carpenter because you can build anything. And I'm going to bankroll you and get you started. And we're like looking at her like, what are you, the mob? Like you're bankrolling people? And I'm like, Mom, he has all the tools. We have a whole shop downstairs. I bought him saws for his birthday like many, many times. He's got everything. He can start now. And so we told him, we're like, take that leap. Now at the time, I was still in corporate. I was making big bucks. I was doing that thing. And so I was able to really support him, and not just the financial part, everything emotionally, just all of it, and saying, you've got this, you can do this. And we do these, I call them dream dates. So not that what we're doing is so dreamy, but when over dinner, we're dreaming, we're talking about what else could we do? Where do we want to go? What kinds of things are important to us? And those dream conversations could be renovations in the house. They could be, some vision we have for the family, whatever. And so we would sit and we would dream about what we wanted his business to look like. So I supported him as he was building his, and now he's a general carpenter, a general contractor, and a fine carpenter, and he's booked for forever. Knock on wood.
Knock on literally wood.
Yes, he's doing exactly what he should be doing. So when it was my turn, he did exactly that for me. And so he is a huge fan. He loves to watch the podcast, or he just watched the live show, and he's like, I'm watching the Leadership Lounge. What do you want? And I talked to him the other day, and he was like, it's really good. I'm loving it. So having that kind of support and someone in your corner really makes a difference. And I think when you can see what your partner is capable of and mirror that back to them, it's really valuable. And it helps them kind of puff up and be ready to take on much harder things.
I was just speaking to another superstar leader, Jasmine Star, and she said, well, we could do this by ourselves, but what a difference it makes when you have a loving partner.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I personally think that it's 20% more effective too, minimum.
Well, there is that that safety and that just calm that when you go home, and home doesn't necessarily have to be a house. It can be a person. It can be a family.
Yes.
When you have that safety net to lean on, it makes you more courageous. It makes you try different stuff.
It makes you go farther. Yeah. It's like having a calm blue light in the corner to just anchor you. You've got so much going on, girl. We're going to link the books below. We're going to link your website below. We're going to link the podcast below and Leadership Lounge, just so that people know where to find everything.
Thank you.
What's next for you?
So right now, we didn't say this, but I was a CRO of a startup, and that finished in July. So I'm refocusing back on a lot of my stuff. So it's more keynote speaking. It's more the Leadership Lounge, which is this live show. It's so much fun. So I'm booking that out for the rest of the year. More podcasting. It's a lot of that stuff, but I'm also really open right now. A few people have tapped me on the shoulder with some big ideas. And so I'm excited to see where that goes. It's too early to say anything, but it could mean some new directions, but very much my DNA stays the same, which I love.
And I love that you're open and you're fluid and you're ready. And I know that when that time comes, you will jump on it yet again. Yeah. It's a delight to follow you. It's a delight to have introduced you to all the listeners today. Thank you so much for being here and for this deep conversation, for reminding us that not only is leadership an act of service, but your life is too.
Yes.
And your purpose lies in identifying and getting in touch with that service. Thank you so much for listening to the Coach Podcast today. If you loved today's show, don't forget to subscribe. And if you really, really loved it, give us a review. It makes an enormous difference. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for bringing us thus far. We're going to see you next time.